Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mindfulness. I'm Anjali. Let us condition ourselves. Palms on your thighs, lift your spine up, close your eyes. If you're not comfortable with closing your eyes, focus at one point. Breath in and breathe out. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. On the next inhale, we'll chant Om. Breath, inhale. Okay, let's begin today's session. Today we'll be talking about Ashtanga Yoga of Maharishi Patanjali. So, Maharishi Patanjali codified the entire yoga system into 195 aphorisms. He did not create or evolve a new system, but codified or systematized what was already existing or practiced before him. This systematized treatise came to be called as Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. The Yoga Sutra of Patanjali is the most authoritative book on yoga. It provides a framework for living a balanced, harmonious life and achieving liberation, which is the goal of our spiritual practice. Maharishi Patanjali defines yoga as Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Let me share the screen here. Okay, here we go. So, Maharishi Patanjali says that Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is cessation of fluctuations of the mind. Let's break this up. Yoga. What does the word yoga mean? The word yoga is derived from the root word yojir or yuj samadha. It means, the word yojir means or to join together, and yuj samadha means concentration. So yoga means union, that is union of individual soul to the universal soul and concentrated state of mind. What is chitta in this? Chitta is the mind. Now, loosely we translate chitta as mind of modern psychology. In yoga, chitta is the entire mind, personality complex. It includes buddhi, that is intellect, ahankar. Now, ahankar not as how we know of ahankar as ego. It's not that ego, it's the I sense. And manas. So, chitta is the entire personality complex. Vrittis are the modifications or the fluctuation. And what is Nirodha? Nirodha is the state of mind which is completely arrested. Complete stoppage of all the modifications of the mind will be Nirodha. So yoga is cessation of modifications or fluctuations of mind. Now, we are all different, right? We have different personalities, different life experiences. Now, according to our Shastras, there are three types of Uttamadhikari. That is the higher level. Wait, let me just change. Three types of yoga aspirants would be Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, the medium level, and Adhama-adhikari, lower level. Our spiritual practice has to be as per our level. In other words, our spiritual journey will depend on where we stand. How evolved are we? In his yoga, Maharishi Patanjali prescribes for the Uttamadhikari, he prescribes Abhyas and Vairagya. Abhyas is constant effort or constant practice. Vairagya would be detached or dispassion. For the Madhyamadhikari, he prescribes Kriya Yoga, that is Tapas, Swadhyay, and Ishwar Pranidhan. For all first, that is the base level students. That's how we look at ourselves as the low level students. We are prescribed the Ashtanga Yoga. So Ashtanga Yoga is the 8 limbs of yoga. Let's see what it is. Okay. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhava, Stava, Angani, which means self-restraints, observances, posture, regulation of breath, withdrawal of senses, concentration, contemplation, and absorption are the 8 limbs of yoga. From here, the first 4, that is the Yama, Niyama, Asana, and Pranayama, are the external angas or external limbs, external practices. So they form the Bahiranga. The last 3, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, are the Antaranga, which are internal practices. Pratyahara, that is the 5th limb, forms a bridge. It is the bridge which takes us from the external practices to the internal practices. Now let's see each one of them, right? So what is Yama? The first limb or the first anga of Ashtanga Yoga is Yama. It is, let's Yeah, let's read your Ahimsa Satya Asteya Brahmacharya Apilvikara Ayam. That is non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation of senses, non-greed, and non-hoarding are the self-restraints. Now, why self-restraints? Humans have certain biological instincts which must be regulated. Yamas serve to restrain the mind and control the senses, as most of our problems are caused by our senses. The second anga is niyam. So what are niyams? Niyams are observances, that which must be done. Where yamas point to a person's right conduct in society, niyamas indicate the inner state of the mind. The 5 niyams are Socha, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishwar Pranidhana. Now we come to Asana, the third anga of Ashtanga Yoga. This is where we all are introduced to yoga. How does Shri Patanjali describe asana? He says Sthiram Sukham Asana, posture which is steady and comfortable. But we need to understand the place of yoga or the relevance of yoga, asanas, in Raj Yoga and in other form of yoga. Say for example, Hatha Yoga. In Hatha Yoga, the asanas play an important role because according to Hatha, practicing asana brings about physiological changes and many times corrects the imbalances in our endocrine system, which in turn prepare the mind for higher practices like meditation. Maharishi Patanjali, according to him, asana which is steady and comfortable will help us to focus better or to concentrate better. So whichever asana is practiced, it should be done with a feeling of firmness, steadiness, comfort, and endurance, because you're sitting there for long. Endurance in the body and with goodwill, awareness, and delight in the mind. Any asana which practiced for long shouldn't cause discomfort. Hence, it has to be sthir and sukham, that is steady and comfortable. Come to the next anga, which is pranayama. So, pranayama, how does Maharishi Patanjali define pranayama? He says, Tasya Shwasa Prashwasa Gati Vicheda Pranayama. When asana has been secured, there follows control of bioenergy in inspiratory and expiratory movement. He does not give us a list of techniques, simply defines pranayama as Gati Vicheda, that is a pause. A pause which follows inhalation and a pause which follows exhalation. Why the pause? So that you slow down the involuntary movement of breathing. Yeah? So you're slowing down the breath work. It is in this pause that you are more aware. Just imagine you are breathing normally and you hold your breath for a second. Isn't it? That's when you get more aware of your breath when you're holding it. So pause to bring your awareness to your breath. Now these were the Bahirang. From here, we go into Pratyahara, which is the 5th anga. Here the senses have to be withdrawn from the external world. They must be focused on the internal. So Pratyahara or abstraction is the drawing in of the sense organs by giving up their own objects and taking the form of the mind stuff as it. It does not mean that you close your senses. Instead, you focus your mind on an object so that it does not get distracted by an external stimuli. So in a way, Pratyahara is control of senses, but it is also the control of mind. You control the mind so the senses withdraw from the external stimuli and follow the mind. Now we come to the Antarangas, the Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. The 6th step or the 6th anga is Dharana. Desha Bandha Chittasya Dharan. Concentration is confining of the mind within a limited mental area. That is the object of concentration. The first 5 angas of yoga eliminate the external causes of mental distraction. Yamas and niyamas eliminate the disturbances arise from uncontrolled emotions and desires. Asana and pranayama eliminate disturbances caused by physical body. Pratyahara detaches the sense organs from the mind, thus cuts off the external world and its impression which are produced on the mind. Now the mind is completely isolated from the external world. This is where the dharana, dhyana, samadhi is possible. Now, the word concentration is used to translate dharana, but it's not ordinary concentration. There's a vast difference between ordinary concentration and the yogic concentration. Ordinary concentration can be involuntary or selective. For example, when you're doing your daily activities, you have your involuntary concentration, or selective concentration when you're doing some activity of your choice, like an art or dance. But in yogic concentration, you are limiting the focus to the object and object alone. If there are any interruptions or distractions, you try to bring the focus back from those distractions to that object alone. The focus is on the sphere or the field of that object. It is a willful concentration. The mind is confined within the limited sphere of the object of concentration, and it must be immediately brought back if it strays out of the sphere. In other words, the main work over here in Dharan is to keep the mind continuously engaged in the consideration of the object and bring it back immediately if it strays. When the concentration is continuous like this, that's when it turns into jnana, that is contemplation. Uninterrupted flow of the mind towards the object is contemplation. That is the seventh anga of Ashtanga Yoga. The mind moves but only in the limited sphere of the object. So if there is any modification, it is only about that object. There is no other interruption or distraction. You're contemplating only of that object. If it's a gross object, then you're thinking about the gross properties, you're thinking about the subtle properties, but you're thinking or you're contemplating only about that object. That is contemplation. The continuity of that focus is the key element here. The continuous concentration leads to contemplation or meditation, which leads to samadhi, that is complete absorption. To the eighth anga, which is samadhi. When there is when there is consciousness only of the object of meditation and not of itself, that is the mind, that is complete absorption or samadhi. So in simple words, samadhi is complete absorption to the point where meditation or meditator becomes one with the object of meditation. There's no difference between meditator, the object of meditation, or the act of meditation. That is samadhi. I'm going to check the questions now. Give me a minute, please. Hello, Lavanya. Hi, Meera. Hello, Brian. Okay, Brian wants to know, how does Ashtanga Yoga differ from other forms of yoga? So, Ashtanga Yoga, like I said, is the 8 limbs or 8 tools of yoga, which was prescribed by Maharishi Patanjali, which when followed systematically, it helps you to focus, it helps you to achieve your goal of samadhi or liberation. The other forms of yoga could be maybe Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is devotion. Jnana Yoga is where knowledge is concerned. Karma Yoga is where you're doing action. Hatha Yoga would be all about physical practices more than the mental practices, or rather the higher practices. So Hatha Yoga will have asanas, pranayams, kriyas, bandhas. So it's more physiological. If there are any practical ways to integrate yoga philosophy into daily life in today's time, yes, of course, it begins with small things like practicing your yamas. Yamas are, like I said, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha, or your niyamas. When you are consciously putting in an effort to practice these practices, for example, you are practicing ahimsa, or you're practicing satya, truthfulness, or asteya in your daily life, in your daily conduct, in your interpersonal relationships. You're trying to integrate yoga philosophy. And of course, slowly it has to progress into other areas of your life also. It has to be seen everywhere, reflect everywhere. What are some tips for beginners starting their Ashtanga Yoga journey? Meera wants to know. Some tips for the beginners would be, so we usually introduce people to asanas. Why? Because that's the gross level, right? It is only slowly, gradually that you, with constant practice, that you understand the other philosophy behind your practices. Slowly, you include moral practices like yamas, you include your personal observances like niyamas, and then gradually go towards the antaranga. I would say never jump directly to meditation or picking up any higher practice. First, you have to be prepared mentally. If there are distractions in your mind, you won't be able to focus, you won't be able to concentrate. If there is discomfort in your body, you won't be able to sit in contemplation. So that's why we introduce everyone to asanas first, right? Understand your physiology, understand your body, go deeper, work on your breath, work on your other mental, or other moral or the emotional instincts. And then gradually you go towards Dharma Dhyana Samadhi. Okay, Lavanya says, how can Ashtanga Yoga contribute to personal growth and self-discovery? You have to practice. Everything comes back to practice. Why? Because when you are practicing each and every limb or anga of Ashtanga Yoga, you will see personal growth. If you're practicing ahimsa, you're practicing satya, you're practicing asteya, aparigraha. Aparigraha is non-hoarding. So if I'm not too greedy, if I am detaching to things, all these will slowly, gradually help you to grow or evolve in life. It is all practice. That's what yoga is all about. Practice, practice, practice. Nitish says it's a very deep study. Yes, it is. And if you are interested, you should read up books on Ashtanga Yoga or the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It's pure psychology. Vinita says, hello, Vinita. How can Ashtanga Yoga support emotional well-being? It comes from practicing your yamas and niyamas, emotional well-being. Because if you are practicing ahimsa, you're taking care of anger. If you are practicing satya, you are having, you can say, alignment in your mind, your thoughts. Vinita's question, how does it help support emotional well-being? So as I was saying, it will help you when you're practicing ahimsa. It will help you to manage your anger. If you're practicing satya, it will ensure that there is complete alignment between your speech, your thought, and your action. If you're practicing asteya, that is non-stealing, again, it's a virtue, right? If you're practicing brahmacharya, which is non-indulgence, you're not supposed to overindulge. It's not just celibacy, but it's any overindulgence will disturb you emotionally. So it helps you to restrain your emotional instincts or desires. Aparigraha, which is non-hoarding, also helps you to detach. That also will help contribute to your emotional well-being. Then when you come to niyamas, niyamas are observances which are shocha, that is cleanliness, santosha, the biggest one. Santosh is contentment. Now, by contentment, we do not mean that be complacent wherever you are, do not have any ambitions. But your ambition should not be, you can say, based on some restlessness or some feeling of lacking. So be content with wherever you are, have your ambition, achieve whatever you want to achieve, but do not feel restless, or you can say, don't have that feeling of lacking. Be content in whatever you have. So that's your other niyam, the second niyam. The third, tapa is austerity. That also helps you in your journey. Swadhyaya is a big one, self-study. This is where you get aware, or you become aware about yourself. So constantly you need to observe yourself and watch which are your triggers, what works for you best, and try to improve on that. Then Ishwar Pranidhan. Now, Ishwar Pranidhan is the other niyam, the last niyam, which means whatever action you're doing or whatever task you're doing, you just leave it, let go to the higher reality, higher authority. So do not be too, constantly, do not look for the fruits of your action. Do not have ownership of that action. Just let it be or let it go. That's what Ishwar Pranidhan would be. So all these will contribute to your emotional well-being. Okay, Nitesh wants to know, how does Ashtanga Yoga contribute to physical well-being? Asanas and pranayams, balances in your body. With pranayam, you are again improvising your breath work, which will also contribute to the physical well-being. So asana and pranayam are for physical well-being. Siddhi asks, how does practicing yoga extend beyond physical exercise? So yes, all that I've said about yamas, niyamas, pratyahara also. So now let's try to see this. Once you are practicing your yama, your controlling your emotional instincts and biological desires, you are practicing niyams, you are practicing asanas, pranayama. So you come to pratyahara. So now it's time to withdraw from the external and go inward, right? So that's how it will slowly extend beyond physical. You need to slowly evolve. That's the entire objective of your spiritual practice, to evolve. And it happens gradually, never jump. Take your time. As long as you're there, you're practicing, it will happen one day. Slowly, it will go beyond physical. Initially, it may be just physical. The Rain wants to understand the principles of Ashtanga Yoga. How can understanding the principles of Ashtanga Yoga deepen our connection with ourselves and others? Interpersonal practices again comes back to yamas and niyamas. Yeah. So when you are practicing all the yamas, it is interpersonal, and your connection with yourself and others is different. When you are practicing ahimsa, that is, you are consciously choosing not to hurt anybody. Isn't your connection with others better than satya, truthful? Now, truthful doesn't mean that you go and utter whatever comes to your mind because you want to be honest. You can't tell somebody, oh, what an ugly dress you're wearing. That may be your perspective, that may not be truth, right? So truthful means that whatever you speak should not be untrue and it should not harm others. That's how slowly you deepen your connection with others. Asteya non-stealing, when you're not stealing from them. So it is better relation with others, right? How long does a typical Ashtanga yoga practice last? Lifetime, you want to go ahead in it. It can last as long as you take to get your moksha. Shantanu, can you explain the relationship between breath and consciousness in yoga? Okay, yes. So breath, that's your bioenergy. That's a very subtle thing. It's of course not extremely subtle. So we have these sheaths, right? We have the Annamaya sheath, the Pranamaya sheath, which are called koshas. So Pranamaya is subtler than the gross body. When you're conscious of your breath, imagine this. When you're angry, when you're upset, how's your breath? It's so rapid, it's fast. And when you're calm, you're relaxed, your breath is slow, deep. Imagine you focusing on the breath and just observing the breath. The breath is something that is with you all the time, right? So that's the best object to focus on. When you focus on your breath, you observe it, how's your mind state? You need to practice it, of course, to understand it better, but breath is directly connected to your mental states. The faster you breathe, the shallower you breathe, the more agitated your mind. Slower you breathe, the deeper you breathe, more calm you are. Okay, Sakshi says, how can Ashtanga Yoga be incorporated into a busy lifestyle? Simple practices. If you're doing asanas, that's the beginning. If you're doing pranayam, asanas and pranayam, that's the beginning. In your daily activities, practice your niyamas, shorter, maintain cleanliness, maintain some self-study, read spiritual books, listen to spiritual discourses. These days, you can listen to podcasts. There is so much. So Even when suppose you're going for a walk, you could maybe plug in a podcast, listen to these discourses. In small ways, you can always incorporate any of these practices. How does dhyana or meditation deepen the practice of Ashtanga Yoga? Siddesh is asking. So, Siddesh, dhyana or meditation is itself a very advanced stage. Most of us are, are hanging out in dharana. We focus, then we are distracted. Again, we focus and we are distracted. So dhyana, once you are at that dhyan stage, there are zero distractions. This continuous flow will automatically flow into samadhi. There is no like how can, it has to happen. So dharana, dhyana, samadhi together, they are called sanyam. That's a discipline. You cannot do only dharana or only dhyana or only samadhi. They go in a flow. So you begin at dharana where you're focusing, concentrating. There are some distractions, but you bring your mind back to that object of focus. This uninterrupted flow, and when there is this uninterrupted flow, it deepens into dhyana. Zero distractions in dhyana will go into samadhi. So it has to happen. It flows from one to the other. Okay, I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you soon with some more topics on yoga. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.